The moment my mother locked the car doors and refused to meet my eyes, I realized something was terribly wrong. It was Christmas Eve. Most 16-year-olds in Chicago were probably at home watching cheesy holiday movies, wrapping gifts, or arguing over which ugly sweater to wear to dinner. I was sitting in the back seat of my parents' SUV wearing flannel pajamas and old Converse sneakers. And I had no idea I was about to lose my family, or what I thought was my family. The snow outside looked like powdered sugar sprinkled over the suburbs. The streets in Naperville were quiet except for the occasional house, blasting Christmas lights, so bright they could probably be seen from space. But inside that car, the air felt like a funeral. My dad gripped the steering wheel like he was driving through a hurricane. My mom stared straight ahead. Neither of them spoke. "Where are we going?" I finally asked. No answer. I checked the time on my phone. 10:02 p.m., Christmas Eve. My stomach twisted. "Mom," she exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding her breath for hours. "We're taking you somewhere," she said. That's not an answer? Dad cleared his throat but didn't look back. "We'll explain soon." That sentence should have sounded comforting. Instead, it felt like the beginning of a nightmare. We drove another 20 minutes before the glowing glass walls of O'Hare International Airport appeared in the distance. My heart dropped into my shoes. Why are we at the airport? Silence again. Dad pulled into the drop-off lane. The trunk popped open. Mom finally turned around. Her eyes were red, but she still wouldn't look directly at me. "There's something you need to know." My chest tightened. "What?" She swallowed hard. "You have family overseas." I blinked. "Yeah, distant cousins in." "No," she interrupted quietly. "Your real family." The words didn't make sense. "What are you talking about?" Dad stepped out of the car and opened the trunk. Inside was a single suitcase. Mine. My brain started racing. Why is my suitcase here? Mom's voice cracked. "Because you're leaving tonight." For a moment I honestly thought it was a joke. A weird, cruel Christmas prank. I laughed. "You're serious?" Neither of them laughed. My pulse started hammering. "Wait, what?" Dad opened my door. "Harper, grab your bag." I didn't move. "Why?" He hesitated. Then he said the sentence that shattered my entire world. "You were adopted." The words felt like they punched straight through my ribs. "What?" My ears rang. Mom stared at the dashboard. "You were adopted when you were 4. My mind scrambled through memories like someone flipping through old photos too fast. Birthday parties. School plays. Family road trips. Christmas mornings. None of it suddenly felt real. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" My mom whispered something so quiet I almost didn't hear it. "Because it wasn't supposed to matter." I laughed again, but it sounded broken. "Apparently it matters now." Dad grabbed the suitcase from the trunk and placed it on the sidewalk. Snowflakes landed on the fabric. "We've located your biological family." My throat went dry. "Located? They've agreed to take you back." Back. Like I was a defective product being returned. My heart started pounding so hard I thought I might throw up. "Take me back where?" Mom finally forced herself to meet my eyes. "To Ireland." The world tilted. "I've never even been to Ireland." "You were born there," she said softly. I stared at her. "So your solution is to just ship me off?" Neither of them answered. My hands started shaking. "This is insane." Dad shifted uncomfortably. "It's complicated." "Oh really?" I snapped. "Because it seems pretty simple to me. You're abandoning me." Mom flinched. "We're not abandoning you. You literally drove me to an airport with a suitcase. Passengers rushed past us dragging carry-ons. Families hugged. Kids laughed. Meanwhile my life was collapsing on the sidewalk." Dad handed me an envelope. "Your ticket." I stared at it but didn't take it. "This can't be real." "It is?" he said quietly. My chest burned. "You raised me for 12 years. 16. Mom corrected. "Exactly," I shouted. "So what changed?" Neither of them spoke. That silence told me everything. I stepped out of the car slowly. The cold air hit my face like reality slapping me awake. Dad placed the suitcase beside me. "Your flight boards in 40 minutes. 40 minutes. To leave my entire life behind. Do I at least get an explanation?" Mom looked like she might cry. But instead of answering, she rolled up the window. The car engine started. My stomach dropped. Wait. Dad looked at me one last time. There was guilt in his eyes. But not enough to stop. The SUV pulled away from the curb. Snow swirled behind the tires. And just like that, my parents drove away, leaving me alone outside O'Hare with one suitcase and a plane ticket to a country I'd never seen. I stood there frozen for what felt like hours. Until someone tapped my shoulder. Miss. I turned around. A man in a suit held a clipboard. Are you Harper Bennett? I nodded slowly. He gave a polite smile. I've been instructed to escort you to your flight. Something about his words felt rehearsed. Who instructed you? He adjusted his glasses. Your family. A chill ran down my spine. Because for the first time that night, I realized something terrifying. What if the people sending me away weren't the only ones keeping secrets? And what if the family waiting for me in Ireland knew exactly why I was being sent back? The moment the man at the gate said my name again, something inside my chest tightened. Harper Bennett. His voice was calm, professional, like airport chaos and crying teenagers were just another Tuesday for him. But to me, this felt like the end of my life. I gripped the handle of my suitcase like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. Who are you? I asked. He gave a polite half-smile. My name is Daniel. I've been hired to make sure you get on the correct flight. Hired by who? His smile faded slightly. Your guardians. Guardians, not parents. That word landed like a brick in my stomach. I glanced back toward the drop-off lane at O'Hare International Airport, half expecting my parents' SUV to come racing back like this whole thing was some twisted lesson. But the road was empty. They were gone. Really gone. Your boarding starts in 15 minutes. Daniel said gently. 15 minutes. 15 minutes before my entire life in Chicago disappeared behind me. I wanted to scream. Instead, I whispered, I don't even know these people. Daniel studied me carefully. I imagine this must be overwhelming. That's one word for it. He gestured toward the security checkpoint. Come on, let's get you through. I walked beside him in a numb haze. Christmas decorations hung everywhere. Giant wreaths, fake snowflakes, red ribbons. Families hugged goodbye, kids carried stuffed animals. Meanwhile, I was being escorted across the Atlantic like an unwanted package. At security, the TSA agent glanced between my passport and my face. You traveling alone tonight? Before I could answer, Daniel spoke. Yes. She's flying to meet family. The agent smiled at me. Holiday reunion. I forced a fake smile. Something like that. If by reunion you meant being shipped off like luggage. Once we passed security, Daniel stopped near the gate. From here, you'll board with the rest of the passengers. Wait. He turned. Do you know them? Know who? My biological family. He hesitated, which immediately told me the answer was yes. Not personally, he said carefully. But I'm aware of the arrangement. Arrangement? Everything tonight sounded like a business deal. What arrangement? He glanced around the crowded terminal before lowering his voice. Your biological relatives requested your return. Requested, like I was borrowed property. Why now? He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and handed me another envelope. This was left for you. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single folded letter. The handwriting was elegant. Old-fashioned. Harper, if you are reading this, then you are already on your way home. Home. The word made my chest ache. There are things about your life that were hidden from you for a reason. My stomach twisted. Your adoptive parents were only meant to protect you temporarily. Temporarily. My vision blurred. Now that you are 16, it is time for you to return to where you belong. 16. Why did that number matter? When you arrive in Ireland, someone will be waiting for you. I flipped the page. Trust no one until you hear the full truth. A cold shiver ran through me. Daniel. He looked at me. Who wrote this? I'm afraid I can't say. Can't or won't. He didn't answer. Which told me everything. A boarding announcement echoed through the terminal. Passengers for Flight 862 to Dublin may begin boarding. My flight. My escape. Or maybe my trap. Daniel picked up my suitcase. You should go. I stared at the letter again. Protect you temporarily. What did that mean? What were they protecting me from? Or worse, what were they protecting other people from? I walked slowly down the jet bridge. Each step felt heavier than the last. Inside the plane, the flight attendant smiled. Merry Christmas. I almost laughed. Merry Christmas. Sure. Nothing says holiday spirit like discovering your entire life was a lie. I found my seat by the window. The plane slowly filled with passengers, couples, families, tourists heading home. No one noticed the 16-year-old girl silently having a mental breakdown in seat 34A. The engines roared to life. As the plane lifted into the snowy Chicago sky, I pressed my forehead against the cold window. Somewhere down there was my school, my friends, my bedroom, my old life. Gone. 7 hours later, gray morning light crept through the cabin windows. The captain's voice crackled over the speaker. Welcome to Dublin, Ireland. My stomach dropped. This was really happening. When the plane landed, my hands were shaking again. I stepped into the airport terminal with my suitcase and the mysterious letter. Crowds moved around me. Irish accents filled the air. I scanned the arrivals area. And that's when I saw him. A tall man in a black coat standing near the exit, holding a sign. Not with my name. With a single word written in bold letters. O'Cal Ihan. My last name wasn't Bennett. My last name was something else. The man looked straight at me, like he already knew exactly who I was. He folded the sign and walked toward me. Harper, he said calmly. My heart started pounding. How do you know my name? He gave a small smile. Because your grandfather has been waiting 16 years to meet you. 16 years. The same number mentioned in the letter. A knot formed in my stomach. Why now? The man's smile faded. Because someone just tried to take what belongs to your family. My breath caught. What? He leaned closer and whispered something that made the entire airport disappear around me. Your inheritance. My heart slammed against my ribs. Inheritance. I had never heard that word connected to my name before. But the way he said it made it sound like something dangerous. Something people might betray a child for. And suddenly I understood something horrifying. Maybe my parents didn't send me away because they stopped loving me. Maybe they sent me away because someone else wanted what I was about to inherit. And if that was true, then coming to Ireland might not save me. It might be exactly what the enemy wanted. The moment the stranger whispered, "Your inheritance," my brain completely short-circuited. "Excuse me," I said, blinking. The airport crowd moved around us in waves. Tourists dragging luggage, families hugging, announcements echoing through the terminal of Dublin Airport, but suddenly it felt like the entire world had gone silent. The tall man extended his hand. My name is Declan. I didn't take it. You just said something about an inheritance. He lowered his hand slowly. Yes. Mine. Yes. My stomach twisted. That's impossible. Declan raised one eyebrow. Why? Because I'm 16? I snapped. And my parents just abandoned me at an airport. His expression shifted slightly. Your adoptive parents. The correction hit like a slap. I folded my arms. Look, I don't know what kind of weird family drama this is, but I'm exhausted, jet-lagged, and I just flew across the ocean after discovering my entire life was a lie. Declan nodded sympathetically. Then let's not have this conversation in an airport. He gestured toward the exit. A car is waiting. That sentence should have been comforting. Instead, it made alarm bells scream in my head. Why? To take you home? Home? I had no idea what that word meant anymore. Still, I followed him outside. Cold Irish wind whipped through the parking lot. A sleek black sedan waited near the curb. Declan opened the back door. After you. I hesitated. Is this the part where I get kidnapped? He almost smiled. If someone wanted to kidnap you, Harper, they would have done it long before now. That didn't make me feel better. But I climbed inside anyway. As the car pulled away from Dublin, I watched the unfamiliar streets blur past the window. Gray skies, old stone buildings, rain starting to fall. Declan sat across from me in the back seat like some kind of corporate bodyguard. So? I said finally. Yes. Explain the inheritance thing? He sighed. Your biological family is one of the oldest land-owning families in Ireland. I stared at him. Okay, and And that land is worth a considerable amount of money. How much? Declan looked out the window for a moment. I laughed. A loud, slightly hysterical laugh. Right. Sure. I'm serious. My smile faded. No. Yes. That's insane. He folded his hands calmly. Your grandfather built an international agricultural empire. My brain struggled to process that. So you're telling me, my parents dumped me on a plane because I'm secretly rich? Not exactly. Then explain. Declan leaned forward slightly. Your grandfather made a very specific rule in his will. My chest tightened. What rule? You must return to Ireland before your 17th birthday. Why? If you do not, the entire estate transfers to your uncle. Uncle? I didn't even know I had an uncle. And if I do come back, then the estate belongs to you. I stared at him. So basically I'm some kind of human deadline. Essentially. My stomach turned. Does my uncle know about this? Declan didn't answer right away, which told me everything. Yes, he finally said. And he's cool with that? Declan gave a dry chuckle. Not particularly. A cold knot formed in my stomach. So let me get this straight. I held up a finger. My adoptive parents suddenly reveal I'm adopted. Another finger, they ship me to Ireland on Christmas Eve. Another finger, and now you're telling me there's a fortune involved and some mysterious uncle who loses everything if I exist. Declan nodded. That's a fairly accurate summary. I leaned back in the seat. Oh my God. The car turned onto a winding road outside the city. Green hills stretched endlessly under the gray sky. So where exactly are we going? Your grandfather's estate. How far? About 2 hours. 2 hours? County Kerry. I groaned. Of course it's 2 hours. Declan glanced at me. You sound disappointed. I just found out my life is a conspiracy movie. He almost smiled again. Welcome to the family. The rain grew heavier as we drove deeper into the countryside. Stone fences lined the roads. Sheep grazed on hills. It looked like something from a postcard. Then suddenly, massive iron gates appeared ahead. The car slowed. Beyond the gates stood something enormous. A castle, not a mansion. An actual medieval-looking castle sitting on a hill. You've got to be kidding me. Declan didn't react. The gates slowly opened. We drove up a long winding driveway lined with ancient oak trees. My mouth hung open. People live here. Your family does. The car stopped in front of towering wooden doors. A woman in a black coat waited on the steps. She looked about 40, sharp cheekbones, cold eyes. Declan opened my door. Harper, this is your aunt. My aunt looked me up and down like she was inspecting a suspicious package. Then she said the first words anyone in my biological family had ever spoken to me. You shouldn't have come. My heart skipped. Excuse me. Her voice was icy. You have no idea what you've walked into. A chill crawled up my spine. Where's my grandfather? Her expression darkened. He's dying. The words hit like a thunderclap. And when he dies, she stepped closer. This house will become a war zone. My pulse started racing. What kind of war? She looked me directly in the eyes. The kind families destroy themselves over. Lightning flashed across the sky behind the castle, and for the first time since landing in Ireland, I realized something terrifying. Coming here might not just change my life. It might put a target on my back. The moment my aunt said my grandfather was dying, my stomach dropped like I'd just stepped off a cliff. Dying? I repeated. Wind whipped across the hilltop as rain started falling harder around the castle estate in County Kerry. My aunt didn't soften her expression. Yes. And unfortunately, he's been waiting for you. Why unfortunately? She didn't answer. Instead, she turned toward the massive oak doors and pushed them open. Come inside before you catch pneumonia. I stepped into the castle, and the first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the peaceful kind. The tense kind. Like a house where everyone had been arguing for hours, and suddenly stopped when someone new walked in. The interior looked like something out of a history documentary. Stone walls, enormous chandeliers, oil paintings of people who all had the same sharp cheekbones I apparently inherited. My aunt walked ahead of me down a long hallway. Your room is upstairs. Wait. She stopped. You just told me my grandfather is dying. I'd kind of like to meet him. Her jaw tightened. You will. When? When he asks for you. That sounds dramatic. This family specializes in dramatic. Declan quietly set my suitcase near the staircase. Someone will bring your things up. Thanks. I muttered. I turned back to my aunt. So, what's your name? She stared at me like the question annoyed her. Margaret. Great. Nice to meet you, Margaret. I'm the niece you clearly hate already. Her lips twitched slightly. I don't hate you. Could have fooled me. She folded her arms. I'm simply realistic about the situation. What situation? The fact that your arrival just complicated everything. A wave of frustration washed over me. I didn't ask to be here? I know. Then why is everyone acting like I ruined Christmas? Her expression hardened. Because you might have. That sentence hung in the air like smoke. Before I could respond, footsteps echoed down the hallway. A man appeared at the end of the corridor. Tall. Broad shoulders. Early 40s maybe. He looked like someone who spent weekends sailing expensive boats and yelling at stockbrokers. But the moment he saw me, his face went completely still, and I knew. This had to be him. Harper, Margaret said quietly. This is your uncle. The man's jaw clenched. Patrick O'Callaghan. He didn't step forward. Didn't shake my hand. Just stared at me like I'd just ruined his life. Well, he said finally, you're real. I raised an eyebrow. Disappointed. He ignored that. When did she arrive? Margaret gestured toward me. About 20 minutes ago. Patrick looked at Declan. You were supposed to delay her. Declan kept his voice calm. My instructions were to ensure she arrived before the deadline. Patrick's eyes flashed. That wasn't my instruction. Okay, now things were getting interesting. Hold up, I said. Everyone looked at me. Did my uncle just admit he tried to stop me from coming here? Patrick exhaled slowly like he was restraining himself. You don't understand the situation. Then explain it. He looked at Margaret. Where's father? Resting. Patrick rubbed his temples. This is a disaster? Wow, I said. You really know how to welcome family. He stepped closer. Up close, I could see the resemblance. Same eyes, same dark hair. Unfortunately, also the same temper apparently. You have no idea what you're walking into, he said quietly. That's the third time someone said that today. Because it's true. Then enlighten me. His voice dropped. If you stay here, everything changes. I shrugged. Sounds like a you problem. Margaret gave me a surprised look. Patrick wasn't amused. You think this is funny? No. I think being abandoned at an airport on Christmas Eve is funny. Everything after that has just been bonus chaos. He studied me carefully. Then he asked something that made my chest tighten. Did your adoptive parents tell you why they sent you here? The question hit like a sudden gust of wind. No, I said slowly. His eyes narrowed. Not even a hint? Nope. Patrick laughed bitterly. Of course they didn't. Did you? He looked directly into my eyes. Yes. The hallway suddenly felt colder. What? I'm the one who contacted them. My brain froze. You what? I found them 2 months ago. Why? Because father's health took a turn. My heart started pounding. And the will is very clear. He said the next words carefully. If you arrive before your 17th birthday, you inherit everything. Yeah, Declan mentioned that. Patrick leaned closer. But he probably didn't tell you the part that matters most. A chill crawled up my spine. What part? Patrick's voice dropped to a whisper. If you inherit, I lose everything. The hallway went silent. Rain hammered against the windows. So let me guess, I said slowly. You're not thrilled about that. His smile was cold. Thrilled isn't the word I'd use. Margaret suddenly spoke. Enough. Patrick straightened. You can meet father tomorrow, she told me. Why tomorrow? Because tonight. Her eyes flicked between Patrick and me. This family needs time to adjust. Patrick turned and walked toward the stairs. Halfway up, he stopped and looked back at me. You should know something, Harper? What? His expression darkened. You're not the only one who stands to inherit. My stomach tightened. What does that mean? But he didn't answer. He just walked away, leaving one terrifying thought echoing in my mind. If I wasn't the only heir, then someone else in this castle might have a very good reason to make sure I never reached my 17th birthday. The next morning, I woke up to someone knocking on my door like the house was on fire. Harper. The voice was sharp, familiar. My Aunt Margaret. I groaned and rolled over in the massive four-poster bed that looked like it belonged in a museum. Is it noon already? It's 8 in the morning. I blinked at the ceiling. Why are rich people always up so early? This isn't a vacation. Right. I sat up slowly. My brain immediately replayed everything from the night before. The castle. My Uncle Patrick. The inheritance. And the small detail about multiple heirs. My stomach tightened. Is my grandfather awake? Margaret hesitated on the other side of the door. For now. For now. That phrase made my chest tighten. I threw on jeans and a hoodie and opened the door. Margaret stood there looking like she hadn't slept at all. Follow me, she said. We walked through long stone corridors that echoed with every step. Morning light filtered through tall windows overlooking the green hills of County Kerry. It should have been peaceful. Instead, the air felt like the calm before a hurricane. Does my uncle know I'm seeing him? I asked. Margaret kept walking. He's already downstairs. Great. We turned down another hallway and stopped outside a set of double doors. Margaret looked at me carefully. Before you go in, you should understand something. My father isn't an easy man. Considering he gave away his granddaughter for 16 years, I already figured that out. Her jaw tightened slightly. You don't know the whole story. Then this is his chance to explain it. She knocked once and opened the door. The room smelled faintly like medicine and old books. A large hospital bed sat near the window. Machines hummed quietly beside it, and lying in the bed was a man who looked like time itself had worn him down. Thin, pale. But the moment his eyes opened and landed on me, they lit up. Harper. His voice was weak but unmistakably warm. My throat suddenly felt tight. I stepped closer. You knew my name. He gave a small chuckle. Of course I did. Margaret quietly closed the door behind us, leaving just the two of us. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said something that made my heart stop. You look exactly like your mother. The words hit me like a wave. My mother. He nodded slowly. Wes. I swallowed. I've never met her. His eyes darkened. I know. 1,000 questions exploded in my brain. Where is she? He hesitated, then he said the words that made my chest ache. She's gone? Gone where? Gone. The room felt smaller. You mean, she's dead? His silence answered for him. I sat down slowly in the chair beside the bed. I didn't even know she existed. I'm sorry. I rubbed my face. This is insane. He watched me carefully. Yes, it is. I took a deep breath. Okay, let's start with the obvious question. Yes. Why was I sent to America? His expression grew serious. To protect you. My stomach tightened. From what? From this family. I stared at him. Excuse me? He coughed slightly. Your Uncle Patrick believes this estate belongs to him. Well, technically it would if I didn't exist. Exactly. A cold realization crept into my mind. You thought he'd hurt me. I knew he might. My pulse sped up, so instead of raising me here, you shipped me off to strangers. I trusted them. Why? Because they owed me. That sentence stopped me cold. Owed you for what? His eyes flickered with something I couldn't quite read. A favor. I leaned back in the chair. You're not very good at explaining things. He smiled faintly. That's because there are things you aren't ready to hear yet. Oh, come on, Harper. His voice suddenly became stronger. There's something far more important you need to know. My stomach twisted. What? His eyes locked onto mine. The will isn't the only reason you're here. My heart started pounding. What do you mean? You are the last direct O'Callaghan heir. Yeah. You mentioned that? No, he said slowly. You don't understand. He struggled to sit up slightly. You are the only one who can legally control the family company. Company, another surprise. What company? He whispered the name. And suddenly everything clicked. Because it wasn't just farmland, it was a global agricultural corporation worth billions. My head spun. So this isn't just about land. No. It's about power. Yes. Before I could respond, the bedroom door suddenly burst open. Patrick stormed inside. Enough. Margaret rushed in behind him. You can't just barge in. I absolutely can. Patrick snapped. He looked directly at my grandfather. You shouldn't be telling her any of this. My grandfather's voice turned icy. She deserves the truth. Patrick turned toward me. His expression was dark. You think you're the only heir? My stomach tightened again. What does that mean? He smiled coldly. It means someone else arrived this morning. A chill ran down my spine. Someone else. Patrick stepped aside. And another girl walked into the room. She looked about my age. Same dark hair, same eyes, same bone structure. She looked exactly like me. My brain froze. Patrick's voice was calm. Harper, meet your cousin. The girl crossed her arms and glared at me. Actually, she said, half-sistered. My heart slammed against my ribs. Half-sister? That was impossible. Unless everything my grandfather told me was only half the truth. The moment the girl said, half-sister, the room felt like it tilted sideways. I stared at her. She stared right back. Same dark hair, same sharp cheekbones, same eyes. It was like looking at a mirror that hated me. What did you just say? I asked slowly. The girl leaned against the doorframe like she owned the place. I said half-sister. My brain refused to process the words. That's impossible. Patrick gave a dry laugh. Oh, it's very possible. I turned to my grandfather in the hospital bed. You told me my mom died. She did, he said quietly. Then where exactly did she get a second daughter? The girl pushed off the wall and stepped forward. Relax, Chicago, she said with a thick Irish accent. You're not the only family secret around here. Chicago. The way she said it sounded like an insult. Start explaining? I snapped. Patrick folded his arms. This is Rowan. Rowan smirked slightly. Nice to finally meet you. I wish I could say the same. My grandfather coughed weakly. Patrick, this isn't how I wanted her to find out. Patrick shrugged. Well, surprises seem to run in the family. Margaret shot him a warning look. Enough. But I wasn't letting this go. No, I said firmly. Someone is going to explain why my long-lost twin just walked into the room. Rowan raised an eyebrow. Twin. She laughed. Oh, sweetheart, we're not twins. Then what are we? She tilted her head. Half-sisters. I said that already. My pulse pounded in my ears. That means we share a parent. Congrats, she said dryly. You passed basic biology. I turned back to my grandfather. Which parent? His silence was devastating, and suddenly I understood. My stomach twisted. My father. Rowan clapped slowly. Ding ding ding. Patrick looked oddly satisfied watching my world collapse. Rowan is my daughter, he said calmly. The words slammed into me like a truck. I blinked. Your daughter? Yes. And that makes her? My cousin, Rowan finished. But genetically? Half-sister. The room felt suffocating. So my uncle had a kid with who exactly? Patrick didn't answer. Rowan did. Our mom. The word "our" hit like a grenade. No, I whispered. My grandfather closed his eyes. I never wanted you to find out like this. I stood up so fast the chair scraped loudly against the floor. So let me get this straight. My voice shook with anger. My mother had 2 daughters. Rowan nodded. Yep. One with the guy she was married to. Your dad. And one with his brother. Patrick. Rowan gave a mock salute. That's the scandal. My stomach churned. You're telling me my mother cheated on my father with his brother? Rowan shrugged. Welcome to the O'Callaghan family. I turned toward my grandfather again. You knew about this? Yes. And you still sent me away? I had no choice. Bull? My voice cracked. Don't say you had no choice. You literally shipped a 4-year-old across the ocean. His face tightened with pain. Because Patrick wanted custody of you. My heart skipped. What? Patrick's eyes narrowed slightly. That's not the whole story. My grandfather ignored him. If Patrick had gained control of both daughters, he would have controlled the entire estate. My mind raced. So you split us up? Yes. Rowan suddenly laughed. Oh my God. Everyone looked at her. That's actually hilarious. I glared at her. What part of this is funny? She crossed her arms. You grew up in America thinking you were normal. And you didn't. Her smile faded slightly. No. Then what exactly was your childhood like? She leaned closer. Imagine growing up inside this castle knowing half the staff think you're a scandal and the other half think you're the future boss. I blinked. Wait, future boss. Patrick's jaw tightened. Rowan smirked. Yeah. Grandpa's will. The realization hit me again. If I inherit, you lose? She nodded. And if I inherit, you lose. The room went silent. I looked back at my grandfather. You put us against each other. His voice was barely a whisper. I hoped you would work together. Rowan burst out laughing. Work together. She pointed at me. She just showed up yesterday. And she's already your competition, Patrick added coldly. My chest tightened. So that's the game? Patrick nodded. The will states the estate goes to the strongest heir. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? Margaret finally spoke again. It means you must prove you can run the company. How? Patrick smiled faintly. For the next 6 months, both of you will be tested. Rowan cracked her knuckles playfully. Oh, this is going to be fun. I glared at her. You think this is a game? She leaned close enough that I could see the challenge in her eyes. No. Her voice dropped. I think this is war. Lightning flashed outside the castle windows. My grandfather looked suddenly exhausted. Please, he whispered, don't destroy each other. Rowan stepped back. No promises. I stood there trying to process everything. 2 sisters, 1 inheritance, 1 family willing to destroy itself over power. And suddenly the reason my parents shipped me across the ocean became crystal clear. They weren't just sending me to my real family. They were sending me into a battlefield. And the worst part, the war had already started. Rowan smiled at me like she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. Welcome home, sister. Something in her tone made my spine go cold. Because I realized something terrifying. Rowan didn't just want the inheritance. She wanted to beat me, destroy me, erase me from the family completely. And judging by the look in her eyes, she believed she already knew exactly how to do it. The moment Rowan whispered, "Welcome home, sister," I realized something horrifying. This wasn't just a family reunion, it was a battlefield, and I had walked straight into it. 2 days later, the castle felt less like a home and more like a chessboard. Every hallway conversation stopped when I walked by. Staff members watched me like I was a storm cloud rolling in. And Rowan. She treated the entire situation like it was the most entertaining reality show ever created. Relax, Chicago, she said one afternoon while we walked through the massive greenhouse behind the estate. I rolled my eyes. For the last time, my name is Harper. And for the last time, Rowan said casually, trimming a rose with garden shears, I like Chicago better. The greenhouse overlooked miles of farmland across County Kerry. Apparently those fields were part of the massive agricultural empire my grandfather built. Billions of dollars in crops, exports, and international contracts. And somehow my 16-year-old self was now supposed to compete for control of it. Remind me again why we're here, I muttered. Rowan held up the rose. Lesson 1. Lesson 1 of what? She grinned. How to run an empire. I crossed my arms. I thought that started with business meetings. Those come later. She pointed to the endless rows of crops beyond the glass walls. This is where the money actually comes from. I studied the fields. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. The closest thing I've managed was mowing my neighbor's lawn for $20. Rowan laughed. Then you're already behind. Fantastic. But despite her sarcasm, she didn't look hostile. At least not right now. Which confused me. 2 days ago she practically declared war. Now she was giving me farming lessons. Why are you helping me? I asked suddenly. She shrugged. Because if I beat you, I want it to be fair. Fair. Yeah, She tossed the rose onto the table. Otherwise Dad will just say you lost because you're the American kid who doesn't understand the business. My stomach tightened. So you do want to beat me? She smirked. Oh, absolutely. Well, at least you're honest. Unlike the rest of this family. That comment hung in the air. I leaned against the greenhouse railing. Speaking of honesty, can I ask you something? Sir. What did they tell you about me growing up? Rowan's expression shifted slightly. That you existed. That's it. Pretty much. I frowned. No stories. No photos. She shook her head. Nope. Wow. Grandpa didn't like talking about the scandal. Scandal meaning our parents. Yeah. I hesitated before asking the next question. Did you ever meet my dad? Rowan nodded slowly. Once. My heart skipped. When? I was 9. What was he like? She thought for a moment. Quiet. That didn't sound like the father I remembered. He was funny, I said automatically. Rowan raised an eyebrow. You remember him? Of course. But even as I said it, something strange crept into my mind. Memories. Blurry ones. My dad at football games. My dad teaching me how to ride a bike. Except, something about those memories suddenly felt off. Rowan noticed my expression. What? I just realized something weird. What? My parents never talked about Ireland. So? Like, ever. She shrugged. Maybe they didn't want you asking questions. Yeah, but. I stopped. Another memory surfaced. One that suddenly made my stomach twist. Rowan? Yeah. My parents never showed baby pictures before I was 4? She blinked. That's odd. Yeah. My pulse started racing. What if? Rowan leaned forward. What if what? What if they weren't actually my adoptive parents? She stared at me. That would be a pretty big twist. I swallowed. Rowan, they never signed adoption papers in front of me. Well, obviously not. You were 4. No, I mean, they never mentioned adoption at all until the night they sent me away. Her eyes narrowed. Wait. Yeah. You're saying they pretended to be your real parents for 16 years? Yes. Rowan whistled softly. That's messed up. Tell me about it. But something about the situation still didn't make sense. I turned toward the castle. Why would Grandpa trust them with me? Rowan shrugged. You heard him. They owed him a favor. Yeah, but what kind of favor involves raising someone else's kid for 16 years? Before Rowan could answer, a deep voice echoed behind us. The kind that saves a life. We both turned. My grandfather stood in the greenhouse doorway. Declan supported him carefully. You shouldn't be out of bed, Rowan said. I needed some air. His eyes landed on me. And I needed to hear that conversation. My chest tightened. How long were you standing there? Long enough. He walked slowly toward us. There's something both of you deserve to know. Rowan and I exchanged a glance. What now? She asked. My grandfather sighed heavily. Harper, the people who raised you in America weren't just protecting you. My pulse spiked. Then what were they doing? His voice softened. They were hiding you. From Patrick? From someone much worse. The air suddenly felt colder. Ooh, he looked directly at me. Your real father. My brain froze. What? Rowan's eyes widened too. I thought he died, she said. My grandfather shook his head slowly. No. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it. You told me he died. I lied. The world tilted. Why? His voice dropped to a whisper. Because if he ever found you. Lightning cracked across the sky outside the greenhouse. My grandfather finished the sentence that shattered everything I thought I knew. He would take the inheritance by force. My stomach dropped. You're saying my father is alive? Yes. And dangerous. Extremely. Rowan looked stunned. So we're not just competing against each other. Grandpa nodded slowly. No. My heart slammed against my ribs. Then who else is in this war? He looked toward the castle gates. And his expression turned grim. The man who just arrived. A black SUV rolled slowly up the long driveway toward the castle. Even from the greenhouse I could feel the tension shift across the estate. Rowan whispered under her breath. Oh no. What? I asked. She stared at the approaching vehicle. That's my father's car. Patrick stepped out of the SUV, but he wasn't alone. Another man stepped out beside him. Tall, dark coat, cold eyes. Rowan's voice dropped to a terrified whisper. That's him. My pulse exploded. Ooh. Her answer made my blood run cold. Your father. And suddenly I understood something terrifying. The man my grandfather feared. The man my parents hid me from. The man who might kill for the inheritance. Had finally come to claim his daughter. The moment Rowan whispered, "That's him, your father." My entire body went cold. I stared through the rain-soaked glass of the greenhouse as the black SUV rolled to a stop outside the castle. My father. A man I had spent 16 years believing was dead, a man my grandfather was clearly terrified of, and apparently, a man who had just come to take everything from me. The car door opened slowly. Patrick stepped out first, adjusting his coat like he had just finished a casual lunch meeting instead of bringing chaos to the family estate. Then the second man stepped out. Tall, broad shoulders, dark hair streaked with gray. Even from across the courtyard, I could feel the gravity around him. He didn't rush. Didn't look nervous. He walked toward the castle like someone who already owned it. My heart slammed against my ribs. That's him, I whispered. Rowan nodded slowly. Yeah. Have you met him before? Once. And she didn't answer right away. Finally she said quietly, "He's not the kind of man you want as an enemy." Great. That made me feel fantastic. My grandfather leaned heavily against Declan beside the greenhouse door. His face had turned pale. He came sooner than I expected. I turned toward him. You knew he was coming. Yes. And you didn't think to warn me. I hoped we had more time. Well, we don't. Outside, the castle doors opened. Margaret stepped out onto the stone steps. Patrick stood beside the SUV watching the man approach. But the man's eyes weren't on them. They were on the greenhouse, on me. My stomach twisted. He knows I'm here, I said. My grandfather nodded. Of course he does. Then why hasn't he come inside? Because he's waiting? For what? My grandfather looked straight at me. For you. The weight of those words pressed down on my chest. Rowan glanced at me. You don't actually have to go out there. I shook my head slowly. Yes, I do. Why? Because running from him is exactly what he expects. My grandfather's eyes filled with pride. You really are your mother's daughter. That sentence gave me the courage I didn't know I had. I walked toward the greenhouse door. Rowan grabbed my arm. Harper. What? If he threatens you? Her voice hardened. I've got your back. I nodded. Same. Then I stepped outside. Rain soaked my hoodie instantly as I crossed the courtyard toward the castle steps. Patrick looked amused. Margaret looked worried. But the man beside them, he studied me like a puzzle he had been waiting 16 years to solve. When I stopped a few feet away, the silence felt electric. Finally he spoke. His voice was calm, deep. Harper. Hearing my name from his mouth sent chills down my spine. You know who I am? He asked. I held his gaze. You're the man who ruined my family. Patrick laughed softly behind him. But the man didn't. Instead he tilted his head slightly. You've grown up strong. Funny. I replied. Most kids do when their father abandons them. His eyes darkened slightly. I didn't abandon you. Oh really? I gestured toward the castle, because from where I'm standing it looks like you disappeared for 16 years. That wasn't my choice. Then, whose was it? His gaze shifted, briefly toward my grandfather in the greenhouse. His. My stomach tightened. You're blaming a dying old man. I'm stating a fact. Patrick crossed his arms. This is getting dramatic. But the man ignored him. His eyes locked back onto mine. You belong here, Harper. No, I said firmly. I belong wherever I choose to belong. A faint smile touched his lips. Good answer. I folded my arms. So let's skip the emotional reunion speech. What speech? The one where you pretend you care about me so you can steal the inheritance. The courtyard went silent. For the first time, his expression cracked slightly. You think that's why I'm here? Isn't it? He stepped closer, close enough that I could see the storm in his eyes. No. Then why? His voice dropped. Because that inheritance was never meant for you. My chest tightened. What? It was meant for me. Patrick smirked behind him, but my grandfather suddenly shouted from the greenhouse. That's a lie. Everyone turned. Declan helped him walk slowly toward us despite the rain. You lost that right years ago, my grandfather said weakly. The man shook his head. You stole it from me. I protected this family? You destroyed it. The tension between them crackled like lightning. I stepped forward. Nuff. Both men looked at me. You want the inheritance, I said. Fine. Patrick raised an eyebrow. You're giving up already. I ignored him. Instead I looked straight at my father. You can have it. Everyone froze. Rowan stared at me from the greenhouse doorway. What are you doing? She whispered, but I kept talking. You want the company. Take it. Patrick laughed. Well, that was easier than expected. My father looked suspicious. You would give up billions of dollars. Yes. Why? I smiled faintly. Because I already won something better. The rain poured harder around us. What? He asked. I glanced back toward Rowan and my grandfather. My freedom. Patrick scoffed. That's naive. Maybe. I turned to Rowan. But the estate doesn't have to destroy us. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she slowly smiled. You know what? What? I don't actually want to run this circus either. Patrick's smile vanished. Wait. Rowan shrugged. You heard her. She walked down the steps and stood beside me. Congrats, Dad. You just inherited the world's most stressful company. Patrick's face turned red. You idiots don't understand the power you're throwing away. Rowan laughed. Oh, we understand perfectly. I looked at my father one last time. You wanted the empire. I stepped aside. It's yours. Then Rowan and I turned and walked away from the castle. Behind us, the men kept arguing in the rain, but for the first time in 16 years I felt light. Free. Rowan nudged me as we reached the greenhouse. So what now, Chicago? I smiled. Well, I've always wanted to take a road trip across Ireland. She grinned. No, that sounds like a better inheritance. And as we drove away from the castle later that night, I realized something important. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't winning the war. It's refusing to fight it at all. Because the life you choose for yourself will always be more powerful than the one someone else planned for you. If this story touched your heart, shocked you, or kept you hooked until the end, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this, because sometimes the most unbelievable stories are the ones about family.